Boy, what a nice crowd. This is pretty neat. And I actually got applause for an introduction. I don't even get that in Washington. Go to Washington and I just barely get by, you know. But it is real nice to be here. And it's nice to be at home. It's nice to be in Texas. And basically all of August I've been here. And it's very encouraging. You know, in Washington, if you think that the world is what we see and hear and do in Washington, you know, you have really a distorted viewpoint about what America's all about. So it's when I come home and get to visit and get to speak out and get to visit with people like you that I realize that there are some very deep concerns about what's happening in this country, and that you're on the right track, and that you want to do what's right, and you're not coming to the government and looking for handouts and special interests. So that to me is very encouraging, and there is but one special interest that we should be working for, and that would solve just about all of our problems, and that is our liberty. So often in Washington, that is the issue that is most neglected. The issue in Washington is that of how do you get things, and how do you influence the government, and how you wield power. And really, and basically, we only have two groups in Washington to deal with that we have problems with, and if we can handle those two groups, we have it made. And the way I see it, it's made up of conservatives and liberals. Other than that, everybody's great, you know, and there's only two parties that seem to have a problem in really understanding what's going on. You know, it's those Republicans and those Democrats. But you know, there is a healthy sea change occurring.
Yes.
I would say that we're starting to see a reflection of this. I always argue that the government that we have is a reflection of the people. And you say, boy, that's bad news. Look at what kind of government we have. What can we say about the people? Well, it's a slow effort. That is, the people may change before Washington changes. And Washington's not doing badly, considering the fact that on average they're about 20 years behind the times. They're about 20 years behind the people, and but we're seeing some catch-up. And I think just 2 weeks ago we saw some catch-up dealing with the very subject we're going to be spending some time on today, and that is the subject of the Patriot Act. And this was the amendment that came up to the House floor, amendment that I was a co-sponsor of, and that was to tone down the Patriot Act, to get rid of totally and completely the sneak and peek provision in the Patriot Act. And we weren't sure whether we could get it to the floor because I was a co-sponsor of another amendment with Bernie Sanders, who wanted to get rid of that portion of the bill that said that the FBI has the authority to go in and just start snooping at libraries and bookstores and just looking at all the lists in case they might find some information that would be worthwhile in their great effort to provide security for us. And that was ruled out of order, and we fought and fumed with it, and it looked like that would not be brought up. So when this subject of sneak and peek came up, the lead on that was Butch Otter from Idaho, and he had voted against. He was one of the very few Republicans that voted against the Patriot Act. There were 3 of us that voted against it. He had voted against it, so he's been very consistent on this issue. And I was the co-sponsor of that, and we got it to the floor, and we got a vote on it. But the amazing thing, not only did we win it, but we had over 300 members of Congress vote to weaken the Patriot Act and get rid of that provision. Now, it would be misleading if we were led to believe that all of a sudden Congress is waking up, that they finally read the Constitution and they voted on principle. But they did wake up to the tune of hearing some voices, your voices. And that's the part that I am so amazed about. Not so much that there were some of us out there, but you know, doing this, the job that I have in my own way for 20 years or more, you know, it comes around where you think, but there aren't very many of us. So, and we don't have a great deal of influence in Washington, so therefore you say, yes, our numbers are growing, yes, I'm on radios and we get responses, yes, we have the internet, and, but is the message really reaching? And I think this vote is a reflection of the fact that several things are happening. One, there are more of us than ever before, and the other fact is that we have better means of communication. You know, we have the internet and radio and shortwave and newsletters and just so many more things available to us than 25 years ago when I first went to Washington. You had 3 major networks and that was it. So this is good news. That doesn't mean to reassure you that we're over the hump. This is just the bare beginning, because the odds of that staying in the bill and the Senate passing it and the President signing it, very slim. And even if they did, do you think we could depend on them to follow the rules? There's no way. I mean, you know, there's one portion of the Patriot Act that Ashcroft argued for, and he still argues for it. He says, we have to do this. And he said, and somebody said, well, why do we have to have this radical change? He says, it's not so radical. He says, we've been doing that all along. We just want to put it into the law. So that's generally the way it works. So I want to talk, of course, specifically about the Patriot Act, but more about the attitudes in Washington and how it works and what we're up against. First, it's a political attitude. The determination of individuals to go to Washington and do what they say. Have you ever had a member or a candidate come to you explaining their position and they sounded pretty good and then went to Washington and forgot what they told you? Has that ever happened? That was probably one of my early motivations to run for office, was the fact that too often we've been deceived. We can never agree on every issue. We can't have unanimity on everything. But we should have agreement on sticking to our promises and doing our very best to obey our oath of office, and that is to obey the Constitution. But the politics of it is very important, because depending on what their position is, not only do we see people change after they go into office. Have you ever seen some in office when they had the opportunity to do some good? When they left, they became outstanding spokesmen for our policy, but didn't do anything for us when they were in office. And sometimes people are congressmen and they'll say one thing and represent a district. Then they want to become a senator, and all of a sudden their views change. And then you have somebody that wants a senator, he wants to run for president, and his views change again. So they're all over the place. Now I'm going to read a quote here from an individual. Some of you may have seen this. It was in one of my publications. And this is a quote from an individual when he was a senator. Sounds pretty good. Sounds like I don't think many people in here have too much objection with this. He said the Clinton administration would like the federal government to have the capability to read any international domestic computer communications. The FBI wants access to decode, digest, and discuss financial transactions, personal emails, and proprietary information sent abroad, all in the name of national security. The administration's interest in all email is a wholly unhealthy precedent, especially given this administration, Clinton's administration's track record on FBI files and IRS snooping. Every medium by which people communicate can be subject to exploitation by those with illegal intentions. Nevertheless, this is no reason to hand Big Brother the keys to unlock our email diaries, open our ATM records, and read our medical records or translate our international communications. The implications here are far-reaching, with impact that touch individual users, companies, libraries, universities, teachers, and students. Does anybody disagree with that statement? That's a fair warning. That comes from none other than John Ashcroft. But now he's in charge. He has the power, and all of a sudden his attitude is different. He will know how to handle the power and authority much better than the Clinton administration. But maybe Wallace was right. Maybe there's not a dime's worth of difference. It's too bad we can't make him eat these words. That's what he needs to do. He is out on the campaign trail to drum up support for the Patriot Act, but he's also quite ready to pass Patriot Act number 2, which if you thought Patriot Act number 1 was bad, 2 is even worse. And under that one, they're going to be able to decide whether you're an American citizen or not. And then if you're not an American citizen, oh, you might be in Guantanamo before you know it. So this is serious business. But the impressive thing to me is that no average American, we have not been reading of dozens and dozens of cases where the knock on the door in the middle of the night, and we've heard of people being hauled away and never seen before. It's not like that. And yet the American people, individuals like you in this room and many other tens of thousands of people have come to realize that if we're not careful, it could come to that. Bottom line.